If everyone will please take their seat.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The first item on the agenda for mayoral action is subject mayoral appointment Downtown Improvement Board. The recommendation is that City Council confirm the mayoral appointment of John Peacock to the Downtown Improvement Board, DIB, for a term of 3 years expiring June 30th, 2015. This will replace the term of Robert Bob Van Slyke, which expired on June 30th, 2012.
Move by acclamation.
Second.
Have a second?
Yep.
Move the second. The questions? Councilwoman DeWeese, and then Councilwoman, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Myers, then Councilwoman DeWeese.
Yes, I'm not going to support this appointment. I looked at the members on here. Are there any women on this board or any minorities?
Mr. Reynolds?
I'm looking at the list of people who are on it.
Yes, ma'am, and it would appear that there are no women on this board currently, but I am not aware of whether or not there are minorities on the board.
Okay. Does anyone know if any of those people are minorities? You know, we passed an ordinance that encourages us to place women and minorities on our boards, commissions, and authorities. I believe the DIB is a statutorily created body under Florida law. I would like to remind you of Florida Statute 760 regarding minority participation on boards, commissions, and authorities. I'm sure there are women and minorities who own property in the DIB area. So I am asking you not to approve this nominee and ask the mayor to bring a nominee that would create diversity on this board.
Councilwoman DeWeese?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and I agree with your concerns on that, and I hope that Mr. Peacock doesn't take it personal. This is simply the first approval of a new board member on something like this, that we have our new ordinance in place. But I have some concerns on form and process, and this, I don't know how to address this because we have the special act, you know, that establishes the DIB, because it has to be certain amount of people, and they have to either be a owner within the DIB or paying lease payments, rental payments within the DIB. And if you'll note in your package, there is no basic information. There is online, you have an opportunity as a citizen to fill out a willingness to serve application for mayoral appointments or council appointments. It's not a requirement of being considered because you simply need a nomination from a council member. So we have a nomination from the mayor, but no information to verify residency, not residency, but ownership or rental payments in the DIB. We would need that information, as well as a little information about Mr. Peacock to be able to consider this logically and make a good decision. So I'm not sure of the outcome on this. I can't support it today because I don't have any information, and I am concerned about this new ordinance that we put in place. But I would like to officially request that in the future on mayoral appointments, that we have information on the nominee.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. It is the mayor's prerogative to appoint who he wishes to appoint for these positions, and it is ultimately the responsibility of this body to either confirm or deny that. Mr. Peacock is here to address any issues and any questions that this body may have, and as opposed to having a long drawn-out list of his accomplishments or where he lives or works or whatever, he's here to answer those questions. So I certainly invite council to ask him any issues or questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Councilman Spencer?
Yes, thank you. I do support the mayor's appointment of Mr. Peacock in spite of some recent rather inflammatory remarks that got the Spencer household pretty worked up, as a matter of fact. regarding perhaps how we as council members may be spending our time. I think I can look beyond that. And I remember a time, ironically, that I was sitting in standing in Mr. Peacock's shoes. Years ago, I was facing a committee of the whole meeting. Mayor Fogg at the time appointed me, and I stood before Pensacola City Council and was not approved to be the mayor's appointment. There were some issues that some people had with me personally, and it was a rather low moment for me, and what I thought was a time that I wanted to serve. I think Mr. Peacock will prove to be a very active volunteer on the DIB. I think he brings the perspective as a new owner of downtown property, as a resident that lives on South Bayland, and but I do understand Councilwoman Meyer's comments. I respect them. I also respect the mayor's rights to make this appointment, and so I do support Mr. Peacock for this position.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Peacock, would you like to make a remark? It appears to be some. Who's that? I'm sorry, Councilman Jerralds.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And I thank Ms. Morris for bringing up that point, because I was one of the individuals who strongly supported the new ordinance, in that if we're going to truly be the kind of city that we talk about, then on our boards and commissions, we must begin to add race and gender to those committees. And as Mr. Spencer has indicated, I understand the mayor's prerogative. I also understand the language in the ordinance. But if we're going to open up and be the city that we're trying to become, we're going to have to do those kinds of things all around, and not in some groups, but not in others. If the door is open, we want to allow our citizens the opportunity to come in. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Comments from Mr. Peacock? Care to say it? Well, yes.
I do feel we need to verify the ownership or the lease portion of it. I mean, that's compulsory to the state statute.
Will driver's license work?
Well, I think it's, I'm not trying to offend
no,
you,
no, I'm not.
Mr.
Will
Peacock.
driver's license work?
It should have been documented by the mayor.
I'm not denying that.
And I didn't want to debate you.
No, I'm just asking.
Trying to speak with the chairman about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Will driver's license work for verification?
Let me ask a question, Mr. Reynolds. Are there some documents missing, or the city clerk, are there some documents missing that possibly were not looked at to make him qualified for this position?
No, Mr. Vice President. The reason he's here is because he is qualified. He is a resident of the area, and if he wasn't, he wouldn't have been the individual that the mayor appointed.
Okay, now what I don't understand your question.
My concern is that is documented as part of this approval. We have a state statute. The DIB is established by a special act of the state, and to not verify that the people that are on that board in writing as part of our approval is irresponsible on our part. We should have that minimum of documentation.
Okay.
I'm not trying to inflame any situation. I think that's a basic requirement, that we ensure we're following the rules.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Vice President, I can categorically tell you that Mr. Peacock is a resident of the area in question. He has a driver's license if council needs some kind of absolute proof. But the bottom line is this was part of the process that the mayor entered into when he made a determination as to who was going to be the individual that he selected.
Okay. Dr. Wu?
I'll wait until Mr. Peacock's finished, and then I'll make a
Can I make one comment about the minority issue? I certainly understand it'd be great to have certain representatives on every board, but I hope we get past that someday. That we don't look at people like we have a certain number of blacks and whites, et cetera. I spend an enormous amount of time in the African American community because I want to. I get that community has to be improved. I have a little brother. My wife has a little sister. I'm every Saturday at the ball games. I donate lots of resources to that community because I get that it needs to improve. And I get that we need to be one community, not just the white community or black community. We need to be one community. So the fact that I happen to be a white guy should not be an issue. It should be the efforts that I put in, regardless of what skin color I have. And my time in the community has demonstrated my understanding of both the importance of everybody in this community, not just one sector.
Thank you. Dr. Wu.
I'll start off by saying that Mr. Peacock and I have been on opposite sides of some very, very large issues. And we have had some very, very vigorous debates. He would see things one way and I would see it completely different. But I also have had the opportunity to work with Mr. Peacock on many other organizations, one of which is the Council on Aging. And through that, I have seen his passion to help others. And regardless of whether he and I had the same political views, I have to tell you that I admire his tenacity and his willingness to fight for what he believes is right. Now, whether that's right or not, what he's fighting for is another question. But there is no question that he is very passionate and he wants the best for the city. And it is for that reason, number one, that I, even though have argued with him, disagreed with him, am going to support him for this position. The second reason I'm going to support him for this position is this is a selection being made by the mayor. And so I could eliminate it if I felt like he was disqualified. But even though we've not seen eye to eye, I don't see that as being a means for disqualifying him. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Jerralds.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I don't think it's a matter of qualifications at all. I would think that Mr. Peacock is duly qualified. But at some point, you know, having lived the past 65 years as an African American and having been denied opportunities in many instances, my first question is, can we do what we did with the rec board? Can we expand the number of members on this board? Because we would still be in search of either race or gender. My third question, according to the rules, composed of 5 members appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council members, must be owners of realty within the downtown area. Do we have an African American that owns real estate in the downtown portion of the DIB? That's question number 1, because if in fact we can't find one, then we'd be barking up the wrong tree. Number 3 or 4, I'm sure there are business owners of gender that have, and I've met a couple of them that own businesses in the downtown area. So let's answer question number 2. Can we expand the membership on that board and move forward? And that may be a legal question. And number 3, do we have an African American who owns real estate in the downtown area that may be interested in serving on this board? So who can answer those 2 questions, number 2 and 3? Can we expand go from a 5 to a 6 or 7 member board, and then that would allow this appointment, mayor's appointment, to go forward? But if we can expand the membership on that board, then we can take on the responsibility of finding either race or gender to make up the shortfall.
I feel that we possibly could, in fact, expand the committee. Do like we want to, if possible. I don't think there are any restrictions for us expanding the committee. Is there, Mr.?
Thank you, Vice President Townsend and Councilman Jerralds. I don't have the special act in front of me, so I'm not going to be able to render a dispositive opinion on expanding it. However, generally speaking, if it's a special act of the Florida legislature, this body would not have the power to affect the terms and conditions of the act.
Thank you. So we don't know.
Jay?
Yes, Councilwoman Myers.
Yes, I just want to point out that according to the document I'm looking at that has a list of all the mayor's appointments. The mayor has appointed 5 individuals. All are white and male. There is not one appointment on here that is female or minority.
Well,
And
let's deal with this particular appointment. Let's talk about the figures, please.
With this
But we don't
particular
need to know the history, please. Let's not know the history. Let's deal specifically with this appointment and make a judgment on that one, rather than talk about the past of what he has appointed, please.
No, the people who are serving on there now. We're talking about the people who are on there now have all been appointed by the mayor, other than the one appointment by city council. So I'm bringing up the same issue I brought before. When are we going to start appointing women and minorities to these boards? And the mayor has 5 appointments on here, and none of them are minority or female. And I'm not going to support this nomination.
Thank you.
Because he's had ample opportunities to bring other people forward.
Could I please point out, for clarification, certainly factually, what Councilwoman Myers is stating by using the term generically, the mayor has appointed previously white males. I do want to point out that word mayor is used somewhat generically. Those are previous mayors. That if you'll please look, Chair.
If we could not, I prefer not.
That's why I don't think it's relevant.
I prefer not to deal with that conversation. Let's talk specifically about this appointment, whether in fact we're going to appoint Mr. Peacock to this or not. So I'm going to Ms. DeWeese.
I appreciate the debate that's going on right now, and I want to start off by saying I greatly admire Mr. Peacock and the work he's done in this community. He is one of the greatest philanthropists that this community enjoys the privileges of having in residency. He's a brilliant business individual and has certainly shown his commitment to this community. And as a new resident of the DIB, I think it's wonderful that he is offering his services. And having said that, I would reflect to this council that the previous 2 appointments that this mayor made removed a woman and placed the 2 white individuals, which we're speaking of. And I go to the DIB meetings, and I can assure you there are minorities who attend the meetings, who have property, who have businesses, and who are competent enough to serve. So if that is the question, and the lack thereof being the reason for not including them, I hope that someone will educate the mayor on that. In addition, I would encourage you to remember that sometimes individuals have overriding associations which may cause them to lose the objectivity which an agency may need in order to bridge difficult moments. And in this particular moment in the history of Pensacola, and in particular the DIB, to have people who have traditionally been a part of the street activities of the DIB, who have attended meetings for years, who have been part of the growth for years, is critical. Having further said that, I hope you will look at the fact that perhaps there is another role in which Mr. Peacock may serve this city more importantly, and his presence on the DIB would omit us from having him in that role. And so I would encourage you to look at whether you can't answer all the needs simultaneously by putting this on pause and having the mayor see if he cannot find indeed someone else, and letting Mr. Peacock serve in another capacity in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay. Mrs.
I don't have a paper.
That's okay. Come on, please.
Okay. I'm Gail Nicholson Leroy. I am female. I do think that when the mayor recommends someone, he has properly vetted that person. If not, he shouldn't be our mayor. And then secondly, I don't think that this person should be elected or appointed on whether they are black or female or white. Hopefully, we have come to a point in our lives where that is not an issue. The issue is who can best serve in this capacity. And so I would urge you to think carefully about, I don't know, Mr. Peacock, I hear good things about him right now in this meeting, but I can't imagine that our mayor would have just out of the blue picked a name and said, this is a white man that I'm going to appoint. I think it goes way beyond that. So please, let's get beyond that kind of issue and appoint the person that the mayor has recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. We just done that.
Thank you, Council. I do believe that Mr. Peacock would be a passionate person on the DIB. His philanthropic work in this community knows no bounds. However, when we discuss willingness to serve, please look at the last two appointments by Mayor Hayward. Mr. Corbett Davis, had resigned twice from the DIB, the last time he resigned in the middle of his term as chairman. He has missed 6 of the last 12 meetings. Mr. Evan Levin, appointed by Mayor Hayward, has missed at least 4 of the last 12 meetings. And in May, they didn't have a quorum, so they could not conduct any business. So when you think about willingness to serve, yes, I believe Mr. Peacock would be very willing to serve, but if you have the opportunity to appoint someone who could serve this community, the DIB, better, I hope you will take that opportunity. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, we're going to limit this discussion now. This is your 4th time.
But I'm looking at the list of members of that committee, and in 2013, there will be 2 vacancies. I can support this motion today, but to the previous speaker, as a black person living in the city of Pensacola, I would be the first in line to get over race and gender as we move forward as a city. And I don't think that it's been us that's been holding back to getting over part. We'd be the first to want to get over it. And that's the reality of it. But I can support this nomination today, and I'll call the question.
Thank you. Well, we got one more person who'd like to speak. Let me do this.
Keep pushing it back. We keep moving back and back and back. We're going to support this and that. You come from a district that's about 40-some%. Right now it's 50% black. You need to have some black representation, some women on these different boards. Move it back. Move it back. You know, they said justice is blind. Justice is not blind. Everything, people see everything. You are appointing mostly white males. I have nothing against the person you represent, but we need some black representation on this board. We got some here. Gentlemen, you're here to represent your community, the whole city, but you're here to represent those predominantly black districts. We're looking for some black representation on these committees. Vote your community, if nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Robinson. I have a question. My question is, was Mr. Peacock the only person who applied for the position? Did he have some other selections that he could have made besides Mr. Peacock?
Mr. Reynolds.
The answer is yes. There are multiple people that were looked at for this position.
How many?
I know of at least 2, but it could have been more. I mean.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the question's been called. All in favor of the recommendation, please raise your hand. Opposes? Okay, you, Mr. Jerralds, you? Okay.
He was 4.
Okay. It was 2 for, and the rest of us were against.
No.
Wait. No.
Right?
No.
Ask again.
Ask again.
Isn't that correct?
No, it was 3. We don't.
All in favor, would you please raise your hand? 1, 2, 3. Opposes? 4 to 3. Okay. Okay,
What was the vote?
I beg your pardon?
What was the vote?
4-3 against.
For or against?
Against. The next item.